Pluto. Former planet, dwarf planet, Plutoid, or should it be a planet again? Well, this was the topic we covered last week on All Night, but this week we didn't quite get to the answer as to what's going on with Pluto, and we're going to uncover some answers as to what is going on with Pluto and why it's so different and maybe what it should be. Because it is a very strange world. It has a very strange orbit. It has a very strange size. It, kind of tilted. It's, well, and the other thing is it's not alone out there. There's lots of other stuff that's out there in the solar system at that distance. So, I don't know. What are we going to do with Pluto? But we're going to look at the problem with Pluto part 2. So stay up all night with me. Previously on All Night with Dean Regas, we talked about the problem with Pluto, but now we got to get to its actual demotion, the kicking out of Pluto from the Planet Club that happened on, a lovely August day in 2006. By the way, so just to reiterate, people that are still mad about Pluto's demotion, that was in 2006. You all hold a grudge. Just saying. But what happened on that fateful day? Now, we kind of summed this up that, I have been convinced. I believe that Pluto is not a planet. I think it is properly not a planet. I've written a book on it called How to Teach Grown-Ups About Pluto because of, adults are the ones that are really holding on to the past. They're like remembering their high school glory back when they remembered Pluto as a planet. But kids don't care. And so I wrote this book to help the kids walk their parents through this and get over the planet debate. But just to sum it up a little bit more, is we have our two antagonists here that started the whole thing. Neil deGrasse Tyson, who unilaterally demoted Pluto at his planetarium, and Mike Brown, who found other things out where Pluto lives just to kind of complicate the matter. And so that's the real thing that happened. It's not that Pluto's small. It's not that it's weird in orbit. It's not that it's made of ices. It's that it wasn't alone. And so when Mike Brown and others started finding other things out there, like an object called Eris, which is almost as big as Pluto, it got people thinking, all right, we got to figure out what a planet is. And so a group of astronomers got together and they're like, all right, we found all this other stuff. Like we've got Haumea, Makemake, Sedna, Orcus, Varuna, all these other ones that are out there that are almost as big as Pluto. So are they almost planets? Or should we make a whole new category? And so this is what happened on that fateful day in August 2006 is the group of astronomers, the most elite, the top of the top, the doctors of the doctors, the International Astronomical Union got together and they voted on this. Now there's a whole little process to this, and I won't bore you with all the details, but in the end, 93% of the participants voted to kick Pluto out of the Planet Club and to make a whole new definition for planet. So 93% did that. Now there's a whole lot of bureaucracy that went before that, and a lot of fighting, and maybe a little bit of actual fist fighting, and maybe a little bit of pocket protector flying, but whatever, they voted on this, and that's what happened. Now this is what they came up with their definition of to what a planet is. Now, I gotta point this out. Before this, there was no definition for a planet. A planet was just, what we all, all right, looks like a planet. This was their definition. And as much as I think Pluto should be kicked out of the Planet Club, this ain't a very good definition. I don't think anybody here thinks this is a good definition. So it's got to go around the sun, right? Yeah, sun, not a star. It just says go around the sun. So yeah, that's a little bit of a problem. It's got to be big enough to be round. I don't know. I mean, so what if it's round? I don't care. Anyway, so it's round. Sure, fine, whatever, we'll do that. And then 3, it's got to clear its orbit. Now that makes no sense because nothing's cleared its orbit. There's asteroids all over the place. So yeah, not a good definition. But Pluto does not become a planet anymore because it shares its orbit with too many things like Eris and Makemake and Haumea and all those other things. So it is out, and there are 8 classic planets remaining. So all I can say is the people that wrote this were astronomers. They needed an English major in the audience, but that's, they're done. They made this and they're done with it. And for folks that say that they're going to revisit this someday in the future, possible, but highly unlikely because they're still embarrassed about this definition. They don't want to think about this anymore. They don't want to look back at it again. So yeah, I'm just going to take this down because I don't want to see it anymore. So what happens to Pluto is it goes into a new category called dwarf planets. Also not a great thing, so I don't like that either. But and the dwarf planets become things that go around the sun and are big enough to be round. Again, the round thing. I don't get the round thing. But anyway, so that's what they say. So 5 things become dwarf planets: Pluto, Eris, Haumea, Makemake, and Ceres. Now, where did Ceres come from? That is an asteroid, so it's closer to the sun than all these 5 other things. It used to be a planet back in the 1800s, was kicked out, then brought back again, all because it's round. We're going to have a debate about this in another show. It's just too much. I don't like this at all. It leaves out stuff. But anyway, that's where Pluto gets lumped in. It's terrible. That's bad. So I know some of you might be saying, well, Dean, I mean, like, what's the big deal? Why don't you just like keep Pluto a planet? Grandfather it in. It was a planet in 1930. Why not just keep it and don't include those other things? It's like, well, you can't do that. You can't like not include those things. I mean, if you don't include those things, they're going to be really sad, first off. But number 2, there's too many other things that are almost round or almost Pluto size. And so the only alternative is if you want to keep Pluto a planet, you got to make them all planets. And then how are the kindergartners going to memorize the 2008 planets? It's a sad day for kindergarten teachers. You can't just have Pluto there because you like it. I don't know why you like it either. We'll get to pictures, maybe you'll like it. But just from this, it doesn't look like I like it. But I'll get to some pictures, maybe you'll like it. But you can't just like say we're going to grandfather it in because it's been a planet for long, because some of these other ones have been planets for longer too. Remember when the sun was a planet? That was a planet for like thousands of years. So not a good excuse, but also if you want to include it, then you got to include others, and then you got to learn more. So I guess that's something, but still. Now, there's one guy that is really on the Pluto defensive side. This is an astronomer named Alan Stern, who is, I wouldn't call him Mr. Pluto, but because he likes lots of different small objects in space that are planets-like, almost planets, so we'd say. And so Alan Stern is a guy who proposed missions to some asteroids like Vesta and Ceres, which are roundish. And then he proposed this mission to go to Pluto because Pluto had never been discovered, never been explored. We've sent spacecrafts to Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, but never to Pluto. And so this is the old post stamp from who knows when, a long time ago, never explored. And so this was the big thing to Alan Stern, is that he wanted to make a mission to do this. And so after a very lengthy budget process, the mission called New Horizons left Earth, and it left Earth in 2006. Pluto got kicked out August 2006. So this left Earth when Pluto was still a planet. It's good because, yeah, I mean, you want to sell a mission to Congress to a non-planet. Probably didn't work. So it was good that it left right before the planet thing happened. But look how long it took to get to Pluto. 9.5 years to fly to Pluto. That's how far away that object is. So 9.5 years in the fastest rocket we've ever made. And so this was amazing achievement that Alan Stern and the team got together to do this, because this project was a long time in the works. And once it launched, I felt really good. I was like, man, it's out in space. Awesome. Let's see it. And so these are some of the close-up pictures that it delivered of Pluto. So you probably see the one on that side more often. That's the false color one. The one behind me is kind of more the accurate color of what Pluto looks like. And you find this really amazing kind of world. It's round, that's good. It's icy, yeah, we kind of knew that. But what's going on the surface is very interesting. I have some close-ups, but before we do that, you see that feature? It's like kind of over my head, over my shoulder right there. Use your imagination. Does that look like a heart, a whale's tail, or a profile of a Disney dog? If you see the third one, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's very weird, but anyway, it's just what it looks like. Now, here's some close-up pictures. So this is the surface of Pluto as we're looking down on it. So it's icy, but it's not frozen in time. It's actually a pretty dynamic world with some geologic activity. Ices are flowing on it, and you get these really cool features. So here's some other landscape pictures as this flyby happened. So the spacecraft flew by really, really quickly, took some pictures on the way in and on the way out. But really the flyby was only a few hours long for a 9.5-year journey to get there. But this is the picture that I like, and it may have made me fall in love with Pluto all again. Even if Pluto's not a planet, this picture has got to knock your socks off, because this is an image that shows, number one, how small the world is. It's very round, so you can kind of see the edge, but you see these mountains that are sticking up out of there. These are ice volcanoes. So these shards of ice that have just built up over time into these really cool mountain ranges of ice. And then along the edge, do I have a close-up picture of it? I do, good. You get to see this kind of fuzziness just above the edge of it. So Pluto has an atmosphere to it also. Even though it's almost 4 billion miles from the sun, it still has enough solar radiation to create an atmosphere. And this was theorized that this would be out there and found and confirmed. But this picture is the one that kind of got me. Okay, this next one's pretty good too. This is the picture taken by the spacecraft when it was past Pluto. So looking back at Pluto as it was silhouetted by the sun, and the silhouette is, so the sun is hitting the atmosphere around the whole world, and it has a bluish tint to it. So the skies of Pluto, if you were down there, would have a bluish color to it. Pretty cool. So this is an artist rendering of what the view would look like if you were kind of just hovering above Pluto, looking back. There's one of its big moons called Charon, looking back at the sun. So that's what the sun would look like from Pluto. And it's amazing to kind of take you there. And this is what I think spacecrafts do, is they're kind of like our surrogates out in space. I can mentally hitch a ride on these spacecrafts to kind of take myself there. And that's what was so cool about this mission. And so, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a planet or not a planet, it's just a cool world. But there's some other one out there too. Because when we talk about Pluto, we sometimes forget about all the other things out there too. And there's one object that's really got my attention. This is called Sedna. Sedna is almost as big as Pluto, but has an orbit that is ridiculous. It takes almost 11,000 years to go around the sun one time. It's the reddest object in the solar system. And it's just weird. There's not another object out where it lives. And we're not sure what's going on with Sedna. And it's almost as big as some of these other ones. And Quaoar is another one. But Sedna is the one that I'm looking at very carefully, because its orbit suggests that maybe there's something else even bigger out in the farther reaches of the solar system, maybe even a whole nother planet we haven't found before. And so to me, Sedna is kind of like the Pluto of the 1930s. When Pluto was discovered, it was one of a kind. It's a weird thing. And Sedna now is a one of a kind thing, whereas Pluto is kind of one of a bunch. There's a whole bunch of other Pluto-like objects out there, but Sedna is kind of its own kind of thing. And so I think Sedna should get a lot more love. And if you've never heard of this world, definitely look it up. Google it, whatever you gotta do. This is my artist rendering of it. I told the illustrator, I was like, yeah, spiky hair, he's like a rebel, he don't care, that kind of stuff. I don't know, it's still just like a rocky thing, but still. So I think that we should start a campaign. Sedna is the new Pluto. Because if you love Pluto because of its weird eccentricities, man, Sedna, that's a new Pluto. We should make t-shirts. We should sell them on this website. Don't you think? Yeah, we're working on it. So this is one of my favorite segments of the show. This is called Hey Dean. This is what, when people find out I'm an astronomer, they instantly have questions about space. And so I just asked them to say, start the question with Hey Dean. And so my Hey Dean question for this week is, Hey Dean, didn't astronomers think they found a planet once, but like it didn't turn out to be a planet kind of thing? And absolutely positively, because sometimes, well, theories suggest that certain things should be out there in space, but they never actually find them. But there's one very curious case about a planet that was observed 4 times at least, theorized by other people, that was really, really close to the sun. Instead of out where Pluto is, it was between Mercury and the sun. And its name was, are you ready? I kid you not. The name of this fictional planet that astronomers totally thought that they saw was called Vulcan. Not Star Trek Vulcan, but like the Vulcan from mythology Vulcan. And there's a real fascinating book about this, In Search of Planet Vulcan, that shows like how astronomers went to great lengths to find this planet, found it, but then didn't find it because it wasn't there. That's the first thing. So astronomers swear that they found it. Well, at least these 2 astronomers, which I guess you could trust them. They were pretty trustworthy. They were basically staring at the sun so long that they started seeing dots. And they thought this was a dot going in front of the sun, and it was moving at such a rate that they thought it would be a planet. So they kept looking back because they're like, hey, these 2 guys saw something. Let's keep looking. And so through all the late 1800s, astronomers were looking for this thing. Nobody saw it. They were looking during eclipses. Nobody could see it. During days where they thought it would be there. And there's some astronomers thought that they could compute the orbit of this thing that 2 guys saw for like a couple seconds. And then it kind of dies down until 2 other astronomers swear they saw it in 1878. They also were looking at the sun too long. They were also seeing spots, and it actually didn't turn out to be real. But for several decades, astronomers were thinking there could be a planet between Mercury and the sun because it would explain why Mercury moves in a weird way. And that still held sway even until Einstein kind of showed them, no planet there. All right, well, thanks for tuning in for another episode of All Night with Dean Regas. Thanks for staying up late with me and learning a little bit more about the problem with Pluto. I know I probably didn't convince anybody that Pluto should not be a planet, but I hope you feel at least a little better about yourself, that you learned something. And if you like our show, definitely hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this with lots of people because we'd love to keep this going. And we hope you have a good time with this. And so get outside, do some stargazing, and thanks for staying up all night with me.